This segment is brought to you by JigMasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to JigMasters.com and use promo code PNF20 and save 20% off your next jig order today.
Welcome back to the final cast. I'm your host, Brad.
And I'm Josh.
And tonight we have a special guest, Mr. John Hipsher from YakAttack. Hey, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
What's up? What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me on tonight.
Definitely, man. So I know we've done a YakAttack episode before, but that was kind of, I guess we named off our favorite products, I guess. So this episode is going to be geared more towards the new products you guys just released and some of the newer products you released within the last couple of months. Get the word out there, and yeah. So how about we start off the episode by you letting the listeners know who you are, where you're from, what kayak you fish out of, that kind of thing.
So my name is John Hipsher, and I've been working with YakAttack for just over 5 years. It was 5 years, I guess, 5 years and a month. And for me, I was the first person to ever relocate to YakAttack. Before that, it was very much mom and pop, friends and family. And, when I got there, everyone thought I was crazy. And, it's been a wild ride, and we've accomplished a lot. And, it's a different YakAttack now than when it was 5 years ago. We've changed in what we make, how we make it, and we've definitely have grown into the brand that I think we are today. And then a little bit about me, I've been fishing forever, 5, 6 years old, as young as I can remember. Always enjoyed fishing with my dad. Grew up in East Tennessee, so mainly trout streams, a lot of bank fishing. We never really had a boat. So it was kind of me in the fly fishing world, and I couldn't really ever get to the river. It was one summer that was just so rainy, and the dam releases were never on my side. And, I looked at that and said, it's time to get a kayak. And at that time I was managing one of our dealers that they still sell YakAttack, and I think they sell Bonafide as well. Uncle Lim's Mountain Outfitters in Knoxville. I think that they've moved to Sevierville, Pigeon Forge area since then. But that kind of got me into it. Basically, the owner looked at me, because I was about to quit. Basically, I had quit that job, taken something else, and someone got sick. When my coworker got sick, and so he went to a Jackson dealer event, or he was planning on it, and basically he bailed, or he got sick or something like that. And my boss looked at me, he's like, "Do you want to go?" He's like, "I know you're not, going to be here in the next 2 weeks, but I'd love to have you come and give some insight and kind of help us plan." And pretty much after that event was like, "Here's a blank check, here's a credit card, basically whatever you need to get us going." And basically I kept the job. I worked there another, I think, a year and a half after, and really helped grow the tournament scene and the club scene, and just overall have a place the guys could come to talk kayak fishing and get the gear they needed. So it was really kind of, I guess, fun to be a part of the early days, I'd say, in that. And I think one of the fun events was hosting a river bassin event, and I still think to this day it wasn't a regional event, it wasn't one of their big ones, but it was the largest river bassin they ever had. I think it was around 85 people, and that was 2014. That was 6 years ago at this point in time, and there was guys coming from all over. But Knoxville's blessed with having Atlanta and Charlotte and Nashville and a lot of big cities right around them, but also a lot of water. So and then basically for me, kind of getting in the world of YakAttack was just Luther putting up a Facebook post about how the business is growing and they're looking to hire, and message him through that and never heard anything back. Sent him an email. I know he's a busy guy, but never really heard anything from him. But kind of that same Jackson event was coming up, and I was still a dealer. I was planning on going to that, and I knew he would be there because he was there the previous year talking products. And I think that's right when the Blackback came out, or that's when a lot of the new products hit. So messaged him and said, "Hey, I know you're going to be at the dealer summit. Do you guys, do you have a chance to sit down and talk?" And basically after that, he spent the next 2 months trying to talk me out of the job. He was like, he's like, "You don't want to do it." And like, since no one had moved, for YakAttack, he didn't want to basically, I guess, I don't know, affect someone's life of picking up their roots and traveling somewhere and moving somewhere with no friends. And it's Farmville, it's where I live. It's 6,000-7,000 people. I grew up in a subdivision, or my neighborhood at home had almost 800 houses in it. I mean, so there's probably more people in that subdivision than there is in this whole town. So it's different. I mean, it's been different. I mean, I've, grown accustomed, and we got good fishing around here, but he kind of tried to talk me out of it for a while. And, but for me, I guess I'm just a stubborn, hard-headed person that, I mean, that this was the current end game. It was always my goal of working in outdoor sports. Even when I walked into Uncle M's, I told the owner, I was like, my goal is to work on the manufacturer side of outdoor sporting goods. And so he hired me on the spot. I put a t-shirt and started managing the floor basically. So the same thing with Luther is, the funny thing is he actually originally was interviewing me for the production manager position, which is, I mean, I think I would adapt and overcome, but I mean, my background's in marketing, that's what I've done for, the local shop. That's what I studied in college. I mean, that's what I have a passion for is products. And, I think by using the products and being authentic, I think is the foundation for good marketing. But eventually, my predecessor, I mean, he was driving 3 hours every day from Richmond, an hour and a half in each direction, and he just got worn out. So, essentially that position opened up, and, I came up here and visited Luther, one day, and, he put me up at his house, and, went out to dinner and traveled around and drove around the area, kind of looking at some places. Or really, he was just trying to sell me on the area. So he took me to Briary Creek and showed me, or that in Sandy River, and showed me the fishing holes. But, ended up taking the gig, and, I've been here, 5 years and a month, and it's been fun. I mean, there's been definitely a little bit of a roller coaster ride going, with some things that have happened in the past couple of years, kind of also the creation, of what we did with the World of Bonafide, that for 2 years I was the marketing manager for Bonafide. So basically anything consumer facing there, down, website down to, helping with, the original concepts and designs, and, done a lot of different things. But I mean, seeing that kind of go its direction, and, now I'm focused 100% on YakAttack. So it's kind of back to business, and it's been a fun past couple months, and we've accomplished a lot, and we definitely have a lot of cool stuff planned coming up this year, and probably have new products hit almost every month. I mean,
wow,
nice. I mean, we don't have to rely on China and long-term planning as far as getting orders and having stuff planned down the pipeline for overseas manufacturing and tooling. I mean, it's basically, if I want it, we can make it. Me and Luther kind of put our heads together, and then we meet with our designers, and if there's a product that we need, or like something for me and Brad were talking earlier about kind of the boat, the aluminum boat products that we're making. I mean, I've got 2 products that we talked about on Wednesday that I'll have, I have one printed prototype on my desk already, and I got one coming on Monday, and we could have those molds and those parts ready in the next 2 weeks. So
pretty
it's I think for the most part, it was one of our old designers, he moved on. He was also driving 3 hours every day, but he went to a different company, kind of, close to his home, and in woodworking, and that's his profession. But when he left, basically, I met back up with him at one of our dealers kind of cookout. And he basically was saying that YakAttack was boot camp, because everything's so fast paced, and, and that's something I think that I've come to enjoy, is the agile ability to continually move and make changes and adjust the product line and grow the product line to the growing nature of the market. So it's been a fun gig. I mean, it was a dream for me. It was something that I worked hard for, and, this was, the end goal, and then we'll kind of see where it goes from here. But, working for a company that, I don't know, we don't have to go through a lot of people to make any decisions, that there's no investors. It's just Luther and me, and, then we've got the rest of our production team and engineers. But as far as, figuring out where we need to go, that's kind of part of my gig now, is kind of moving into a business development role as well as marketing. So it's been a blast for sure.
That's good stuff, dude. I was just telling Josh before we called you in that I didn't know much about you at all. So it's pretty cool background. I like it. Awesome.
Yeah, man. And kind of going off what you were talking about with like your product development and like coming up with your new ideas, how often does the new ideas come from the outside, or is that stuff a lot of times come in from internally, like with you and other anglers that might be on the YakAttack staff that, they shoot out those ideas? Do you guys get a lot of ideas from like outside the company that kind of helps drive that too?
So I guess for me, I kind of play that one a little differently. That a lot of it's coming from me. A lot of it's coming from Luther. Dan, our main designer. I mean, he used to work for Orvis. In kind of a different role. I think he did kind of a jack of all trades, helped him with production and helped him with getting things organized and quality control. But I mean, he's a fly fishing nut. I mean, he's a hardcore angler, so that's been my goal is to as part of my job description last year, but I've kind of been slacking on it, was to take him kayak fishing every week just to get his brain grown and evolved into what we do and how we think is a small space organization on a kayak. And then we've got Joey, which was I think we hired him maybe about four maybe 6 months ago. And he's been kayak fishing for several years. I mean, I've never asked, but I'm guessing 5-6 years. So I mean, he's got his own experience. But as far as product design's a tough one, because it's one that a lot of people think that an idea is worth so much money, but I mean, ideas are cheap. It's the ability to execute and the ability and having the outlet to sell. I mean, you've seen some, even in this industry, there's been some great ideas come and go, but it's been, whether they're engineers that don't understand the marketing aspect or whether they're marketing guys that don't make the right product. It takes kind of a full bag to get a product going. But basically, I mean, if someone ever emails, I've got to kind of dance around that one. Someone's like, hey, I got a product idea I'd love to discuss. And I typically say, I mean, if you don't have a patent filed on this product, I don't really want to talk about it. Just because it puts us in a tough position of, I've got, 40, 50 products that have been, kind of halfway developed that are sitting on a shelf that it could have been one of those. And most of the time it is one of those ideas, because a lot of us, there are a lot of common ideas that, whether we're just trying out how to manufacture it or have other priorities. But, I try to basically, if someone's got a, hey, I've already filed a patent or I've got a patent, that person kind of understands that. But someone that just throws out an idea that says, hey, that through hole connector, I had that idea and I talked about that on a video 6 years ago and you guys stole that, so it's,
I got you.
I don't know. So you just got to be careful with product design. But then, I think one thing for us, like, even I guess, even on the bona fide side, we would get them and like naming the last boats. We got them involved naming the last boats. And I saw one of the guys in his blue Palmetto SS127.
I remember that.
Yeah. And he was like, oh, I was involved to name this. And like, that's kind of been my go-to at YakAttack is, if I'm looking for product names, like the padlock paddle holder was someone, or, the turnkey track adapters, which was our boat mounts for the, aluminum boats, that was all team driven, and basically that's just up a giant word cloud on, a private Facebook page. And, we'll get 200 different names. And I mean, half of them are just people throwing names up, but I mean, it's fun to be involved with. And so every once in a while, you see something stick.
I don't even want to know. I don't even want to know what ridiculous names Brad came up with.
I submitted a few of them.
But even with like those colors, like you never know. I mean, I think with some of the ones they landed on is interesting, but I mean, that's something that we get them involved with, from that aspect as well. But we tend to use internally our team more than, the general public, or if people email or call, just because it's, I don't know, a lot of people think that, hey, I got an idea for a rotating widget that floats, that would go on your boat, and then be like, well, I'm going to sell it to you for, $200,000. You're like, it's not how it works. I was like, that's just not how, this isn't Silicon Valley. And I mean, it's hard to build a business off one product. That's why kind of for us, like we've got, 150, not, I guess I would say 150, 175 different products that are individual, not t-shirts and hoodies. And it's just different SKUs and manufactured products that it takes a lot to be able to grow and service a dealer and make sure they've got all their needs taken care of. But yeah, I mean, well, especially like in the marine world that we're kind of pushing into, we're going to kind of lean on some of those guys for product ideas. And typically, I mean, like kind of an example, like the Switchblade, the transducer deployment arm, we had that design and molded. It was done. And then we basically had this light bulb moment of, why doesn't the lock and load completely interact with that interface, and you can replace the knob with the lock and load base. So therefore, a transducer arm plus your display mount only takes up, less than 4 or 5 inches on a track. We basically threw away, we recycled all that tooling. We just completely started from scratch, and so that's kind of what we do a lot, that it's easier. And for us, I think that's a strategic advantage that, you learn a lot of things through product design, but in the end, typically it might be something completely different, but you picked up on some, you grew the brand language, you grew the product language, and you learned some tricks along the way that, you might end up with something totally different than what you had originally, drew up in a product brief. And that's kind of what happened with the Switchblade is we changed the base and made it function more and made it, more capable, and that's where, we, I think, excel without having to deal with anyone making our tooling or kind of at this point in time doing any manufacturing for us.
Yeah.
So it's pretty fun to be a part of a company that has those capabilities that basically if I dream it up or if Luther dreams it up or if Dan, wakes up, and drives in, he's got about a 2-hour drive into work and he stays here half the week. But if he's got something, he'll just, we'll talk about in the morning and then shoot, we might have a 3D printed product by the end of the day and, and give the approval and let's go to tooling that week, so it's pretty cool to see that, agile nature. And I think in such a young industry that, it takes that type of company to be successful, to be able to, I mean, this industry wasn't the same as it was a year ago or 2 years ago. And, the kayaks are changing, the anglers are changing, the needs are changing. So, having that ability is pretty powerful.
Yeah, definitely. Going off what Josh said, talking about the product design and everything, do you guys ever get suggestions or like tweaks on all products you already have?
I mean, I think probably every once in a while, you get, I think one thing that we put ourselves out there enough that, I think if you go on the website, like it's giant on the homepage, contact us, here's our email, and that's on purpose, so I think you do get a lot of people that have a certain product that either want to see it designed a certain way or want to see it changed and added. And there's I guess the cup holder was a great example. The multi-mount cup holder, simple, easy, fairly inexpensive track mounted cup holder compared to the previous alternatives. When designing it, we were like, well, we want it to be a solid bottom. We want it to be basically a tray. If you want to throw, weights and tungsten and, hooks and I don't want it falling through any cracks or holes, but at the same time, it collects water, So if you're out there, whether you're just aggressively paddling, throwing a bunch of water around, or it's just a rainy day on the water, that it will fill up with some water, and it creates some problems. And if you've got for me, what I'll do is even on my SS127, I would put 2 of them on the back on the perch pad and then 1 of them in the middle. And basically, I'd put my top 5 favorite baits that I don't have currently tied on for that, those conditions and that weather. And then I use 1 for spent plastic and maybe 1 for a water bottle. But eventually we got this suggestion so many times that we basically said, let's change the mold, and we're able to go in there and make the modifications to the mold. And sometimes it's cutting a new piece, sometimes it's modifying the existing mold, and we were able to go back and add some holes and I think make everyone happy because nothing will fall through it, but it's enough to break up some water tension to where you do get some, seepage throughout the bottom, so it won't retain any water over through the period of the day. So
yeah,
that's cool. That's one thing I remember when Luther came on with Brian on the OG show. He made it a point to let him, he said, I might not always be vocal out there, but, I'm always watching and listening and reading, like customers, like, concerns or even ideas at that, he's like, it really kind of helps, you've got to be open to that. Cause if you kind of shut the door and assume that everything's always golden and gravy, you can't evolve as a company, you get kind of stagnant. And then you kind of lose that innovative side to it, even if it's as simple as putting some holes in the bottom of the cup holder, but at the same time, man, it's like, well, we just created basically 2 products in one, like you said, it's a tray and it's your cup holder at that point. I love that cup holder, man. It's like one of my favorites.
It is nice.
I have like 60 freaking Nalgene bottles from my backpacking day. So when that came out, I'm like, what? Now, Gene, put that thing in there. And I was stoked, man, because, I have a Jackson Coosa and I had the center console and it was removable. And that console creates a little bit of not clutter, but crampness, especially if you start fishing tournaments. Back in the day, before I fished tournaments, I loved the console. It was a good place to drop my, water bottle, whatever, but once I got the cup holder, it actually became like a trash can basically for me, you know, because that thing it wasn't watertight by any means, but it became a used bait. You know, like any plastics I went through or whatever, if I had something tied on and I just wanted to kind of throw it to the side, but keep it close, that's what it became. But yeah, man, it's definitely what you guys are doing over there is it's impressive. It's fun to watch. It's been really fun to watch from when I started kayak fishing 5 years ago to see what YakAttack has come up with in this short a period of time. You know, I mean, I got some, you know, just the original like rod holders, like, you know, the Zuka tubes and, you know, that kind of stuff. And just to see like now with the AR style holder and all that jazz, you're like, man, it's getting cool. And it's exciting to see what you guys come up with each year.
Yeah. And for me, like, if you're not on top of it, I mean, like, I'm plugged into social media. Like, just, I guess, from an example that, like, Luther and me, Luther has more mutual friends than any person I ever grew up with. You know, and I've got the same friends from when I was 5, you know, so like I've got a lot of old friends that I've known most of my life, but, you know, me and Luther, we're plugged into it. I mean, everyone in our company that, you know, Joey and Dan and me and Luther, we have to, you know, so I mean, that's part of the gig that, you know, I was listening to kind of a marketing podcast last week and they're talking about social listening tools and all this automation and stuff like that that's come about. And I'm like, it's all gravy and all, but I mean, if you don't know it as a person, you know, if you don't fully absorb it yourself and be, you know, involved in interacting with the community, or, I mean, I couldn't imagine, you know, working with my pro team, you know, if I didn't know anything about kayak fishing or didn't know anything about our products and was just there to strictly manage people, and it's not the same, you know. I mean, it's knowing the products through and throughout that, like, for me is like, you know, I've been a YakAttack consumer, I've been a dealer, and then I've been on this side. So, I mean, I know the brand better than pretty much anyone else at this point in time, that it's important to know your customers and continually be interacting with them. And, you know, and that's for one, like, I mean, for our marketing department still handles all the social media questions, you know. It's like, if I don't really want our customer service to handle those, because, you know, I want someone that, you know, is putting out our day-to-day message, you know, as far as, you know, our social plan and what we post and why. Is if we get certain questions, we'll just throw them on a board and make sure that they're taken care of, you know, and making sure that the consumers are taken care of. Like, I guess, like the camera mounts, you know, we'll get to that one, but as an example of that is, you know, people always, you know, they always wanted, they're like, oh, just, you know, I don't know why you need to redesign this camera mount, you know, just, you know, put a lock and load base in the bottom. And we're like, yeah, we want to do that, but like, we want to try, you know, and do something different. But, you know, testing it and using it, we're like, really? I mean, let's figure out the ball mount. Let's try to make the better ball and make sure that we can have, you know, a tripod threaded quarter 20 mount also work with GoPro. And so you're buying, you know, one product works for everything. But like, that simple part of just figure out how to use the lock and load base on this is powerful, you know. So if you're not listening to your consumers, you know, I think at any company at this day and time, you know, you're becoming out of touch with your industry and really where you need to grow to. Because, you know, I mean, if you feel like you've already lost control, it's too far gone, you know. And in this day and time with, you know, the ability that one thing that technology is given is, you know, back in the day for someone to have a CAD software was thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars. And, you know, you have to trust that program and trust your design and then send it to a tool maker. They make your injection molding. But right now with the, you know, you can buy a $200, $300 3D printer. That's fantastic. And so you could design something, print something, and kind of see where it goes from there, you know. And but it's created the ability for companies to grow and start up a lot quicker. So technology's really had a positive effect on, you know, getting a company going and products. But then on the same point of the same thing with technology is, you know, sometimes I feel like I wear 20 different hats that I'm trying to have to, you know, take care of, you know, people reaching out to the website, you know, all our social pages. Because if there's a social platform out there, you're not a part of it, you're already behind the ball, you know. So you've got to be involved with your customers through and through to be successful.
Yeah, that's the one thing I like about YakAttack and Bonafide, man. I always see you or Luther or Justin Floyd. They're always answering people's questions in threads on Facebook and stuff, and I think that's really cool. I don't see other companies doing that as much.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, that's an easy one, you know, like that's one that it doesn't take any time out of my day. You know, I'm already in kayak bass fishing, or I'm already in this group, or, you know, it was one, I think it was 2 weeks ago, that it was a guy he's talking about how he resoldered his VisiCarbon. You know, I think it was one of the LEDs. He's had it for probably 3 or 4 years.
I saw that.
And one thing for us, I mean, we didn't start out this way. I mean, kind of before, we had a year warranty on all of our products, but basically the goal is to set the bar really low in the next seed expectations, because that's kind of how you win people over. But it was kind of a mindset change to help our dealers sell better. And it's how I purchase products personally, is through a warranty. If someone puts a lifetime warranty behind a product, I'm going to buy it, because I'm going to beat the hell out of it, and I'm going to use it, and it better be designed as it's intended. So like someone like that, he took the time and soldered, and I was like, man, it's like, if you ever want, like, if there's something, if your repair didn't work, I mean, this product has a lifetime warranty on it. So, I mean, please contact me. And I feel like there was 2 people in that thread that were like, really? Is like, but they also, like, I made so open to be like, please just, message me directly. I'll make sure we have, a new light housing and LED sent out to you. I mean, that's easy. I mean, that took no time out of my day. And I mean, if you're not a company interacting with your consumers like that, especially if they have any problems, it really slows down the jet fuel that is word of mouth, and that's, in this day and time with social media and how fast information can be thrown around and grown, word of mouth that's the goal, that's the goal to grow a brand is, and that's what I feel like for us has been a lot of grassroots marketing, get involved with the communities and the local tournaments, but also it's just, sheer word of mouth that, I think it was funny that I was at an event. It was down in North Carolina for a powerboat dealer that we're talking to, and they had a grand opening. And I was carrying our long leverage land net, the one that, I mean, it's really can't be used in a kayak. Actually, Jeff Little uses one about as long. He's about the only person that uses the long XL handle in a kayak, but typically it's powerboats. And I jumped out of the car to get set up, and it was 8:30 in the morning. And the guy saw me. He's like, "Oh, I love that net. I have it." And I was already like surprised. I was like, because that industry doesn't know who we are yet. And then talking to that same guy, he was like, "Oh yeah, I was talking to this dude. I think he was the owner at the FLW, KBF event in Hot Springs." Mm-hmm. And I started talking to him because I was like, it was me and then one guy from Bonafide that he probably wouldn't have been talking about nets and stuff that to him, but he's like, "Oh yeah," he's like, "I bought the wrong net, and this guy, he basically contacted me, gave him his card. I think it was the owner." I was like, "Dude, that was me, man." For me, like, I'm down. The reason I shaved the beard, I'm down 70 pounds, so like I didn't look the same at all. And he looked in his phone and was like, "It's John Hipsher." I'm like, I showed him my ID. I was like, "It's me, bro." But it was just funny because he was just already a brand fan and only had one experience of basically bought the wrong net. And I basically was like, man, I was like, just keep the other net, and I'll send you the one that you meant to order or intended to order. And that guy will buy anything from us. I mean, that guy will be a brand fan forever just because it's the way that you handle customers. And I mean, what did it cost us? It cost us a net or shipping, or it cost us a handle or whatever. Pays its weight in gold, So I mean, that's how I'd want to be handled as a consumer, because I mean, I ordered some new ski boots. It was last year. I was on a ski trip with some buddies in West Virginia. It was probably the last time of the year going skiing. And I mean, some of the, I think, most expensive ski boots that are made in the industry. I mean, they were, almost $1,000. And then when I got to the ski resort, getting ready for night skiing that day, pulled up in the box and there was a size 7.5 and a 10.5. And I called him, was like, "Here's your options." I was like, "You can overnight me the correct size, or I return these on Monday." And that's $1,000 sale for them. I mean, and they wouldn't do it, and that was just the dealer. I know how that a lot of those people, if they have a customer service team, they're probably not willing to make moves like that. But, me as a, working for a manufacturer and then maybe down the road owning my own business, I don't know. I'd love to do that down the road. I would have made that move, because that's one, you just lost all that money, but also I'm no longer really a brand fan of yours because, but I understand mistakes happen, but it's how you fix those mistakes is vastly important, and it's how you react as a company to, whether you ship someone wrong, whether you shipped the wrong product or, wrong hardware, or, someone had a problem with a boat, or a kayak. If you don't make it right and make it right in the right way, that that's hinders your brand performance over from a long time. And that's where actually I think that, a lot of people don't know it, but I mean, there was original partners with YakAttack. It was Bob and Luther. And Bob, he actually works for us now. He's been working for us, I think, for the past 2.5 years. He came back, but originally Luther bought him out. And this is when there was only one product. It was the VisiPole. It was made from PVC, but they sold a lot of them the first year. And Bob was telling me a story of kind of the division point in the brand, or between the leadership and the ownership of the companies, between Bob and Luther. And it was, someone had the pole, leaned up against, their garage door, and someone opened it or whatever, and it fell and it cracked something. And it was out of, their advertised warranty or whatever. And Bob was like, oh, no, make him pay for parts, or make him pay for it. And then Luther was like, no, it's like, we're just going to send him a new one. Like, that doesn't cost us much. We're going to send him the parts he needs to repair it. And I think that was kind of one of the moments that, kind of created, I think, part of our mission statement as a brand, and how we operate, and how our customer service team operates, and how we operate in the world of marketing. So I think that's kind of a fun little tidbit, of kind of that old school story that still stays true today for sure.
Yeah. Dude, I have to commend YakAttack for that. I'm brand loyal forever because of all that. It's awesome.
Well, and going off what you're saying, John, is like one of the things that I always kind of see is, with social media, there's a lot of this whole bashing sessions you see that go on products. Like, something happens with the product, something defective goes on, and it's just hell to pay, and it's kind of unfortunate because I don't look at it like that. I am a big believer in, like, giving the products a chance, but giving that company a chance to make it right. And that's one thing I get really sick of reading online, is that when something goes wrong, it's like, oh, the end of the world, these people suck, this company sucks. And it's like, dude, before you do that, have you even called them, like, to rectify your issue? Like, no, the instant that it happened, you jumped on social media to bash them. And, that's just, those are miserable people. That's what I like to call them, miserable people. It's like, dude, your whole life is led in, the constant state of being disappointed, and that you've got to voice it. Like, I get it. If you have an issue, throw the question out there. Is somebody else having an issue? But contact your companies out there, guys. Like, more often than not, these companies are going to work with you to rectify that situation, because what John is saying about YakAttack is not something that's new. That's a sign of a successful company. And these companies have been around for a long time, are successful a lot of times for taking that stance and taking that mindset of, hey, if something goes wrong, we are willing to rectify and fix that issue. I mean, we've seen it time and time again with any of the kayak companies themselves, or any of the accessory companies, and those that fail are the ones that don't rectify those issues and, steer, they basically turn a blind eye to the situation. But that doesn't happen very often, but, it's cool to see that aspect that keeps coming around, because, in today's day and age, as these companies, like real big corporations that, like, like I work for a pretty big company, man, and it gets to be amazing sometimes, of the stuff that you see, like when you were talking about leadership being involved, and you guys are anglers, and you do this, and you have the background, you have the ideas and that sort of thing. And, big, huge corporations, you're in the news and you're watching, and you're like, CEO from this company is hired on this company. Well, those companies have nothing in common product wise. Maybe their structure's the same, but, it's why I think you see like CEOs come and go like water with these companies, because they're not hiring them because they have a passion for that product. They're hiring them because they need them to manage people and to manage like a business model, a structure. And I think that's where you see, the company might not fail, but you see it slip. You see like overall money go down, overall product design go down, whatever it is, because it may be a different situation for each new leadership, that's chosen. But I don't know. it's cool to see the grassroots mentality, and I kind of wish that you would see it more, even like in today's big companies. And I think it's important. I think it's kind of that American way of doing business that you guys still stick with, that keeps people tied to YakAttack. I mean, I've been using the products from day one. I think that I bought my Jackson. I remember looking at some stuff like on the wall, like, I think I'm gonna get, that Roto Grip paddle holder, and that's been like one of my favorites. Literally my like go-to number one thing that I've had, and it's lasted this whole time, man. And yeah, there's some flaws with it, but you know what that flaw is from? It's from use. You know what I mean? It's simple. It's not this stuff that we buy. Anybody buys anything that you buy now has an expiration date, so you got to look at it that way. You can't always expect everything to last forever and be perfect, and, as long as you got companies that back their products and are willing, it's going to keep you guys moving forward. And, I commend YakAttack for taking that stance. It's good to see that. It's refreshing, really,
Yeah, and for us, like, it's one, I remember sitting down with Luther. I mean, this is probably 3 years at that point in time. And one thing we were talking about is just don't change, basically, he's like, if we ever, do this and this and this and, grow and grow and grow so big to the point that we just can't handle it, it's like, just let's make sure we don't change how we do business, and that's important, because I mean, I was buying something, getting ready for the, this trip I'm going on this week, to Wyoming, and I needed a flannel that didn't have any cotton in it because I was going to ski in it, as another base layer. Mm-hmm. And it was a company that, I mean, I own thousands and thousands of dollars of their stuff, and they're a big conglomerate at this point in time. The webpage had nothing to do with the, fabric makeup and the materials, and like even messaging their, chat service was like, yeah, we have no idea how to answer your question, but I was like, every single garment ever that I've ever owned from you guys has it right on the hip, right on the inner care tag and, materials tag. And I don't want to ever get to that point, because it's one that, in our customer service team, I mean, we haven't done it always. It's something I'm starting to do, but basically I'm allotting an hour out of my week to sit down with my team and go over our products and teach them, why I use what rod holders where, or, why I would put this track over, here compared to a certain other track that we make, or just trying to, because especially here, I mean, it's Farmville. I mean, it's a small town. We can't have everyone, that's involved, consumer facing, be a kayak angler, but that's kind of my goal this year, is to at least get them thinking like one and understand the products a little bit more. And, but also when, here, I'd say here, I mean, it's Virginia, who knows, it could be 75 degrees next week. But once it gets nice, take them out, once every 2 weeks and just get them involved using our products. But I mean, it gets to a point that we've told them this and told them that from the beginning, is don't ever lie to the customer. Mm-hmm. If you can't answer the question, just put them on hold or grab their information and grab me, grab right. Someone else that, I want to make sure that their question is taken care of, and, and I've heard it from, this is back in the day, but this is back when it was just me and Kim running all of customer service. I was doing all marketing as well, just two of us. Someone called up and was like, he didn't even say hello. He just said, do you kayak fish? In a really just serious voice. And I was like, yeah. He's like, what kayak you paddling? I was like, I don't know what it was at the time, maybe a Kusa HD or something like that, or an Attack. And he's like, oh, well, I got a Kusa HD too. And you could immediately tell that the guy was just so excited that he got someone that he could talk to. And like, that guy would literally, he would message, he'd email me directly and been like, hey, I'm looking at my next paddle purchase. What paddle do you know? Benny Branches or Werner or PFD? He's like, oh, I have this one, it was an old one handed down. This doesn't really fit me well. I was like, should I do NRS or Astral? And it was just, the whole thing's funny because he, it has nothing to do with YakAttack, but he found someone in the industry that he could trust. And from a consumer perspective, and like, trust goes a long way, if you're,
yeah, it does.
If you're relatable as a company, that has to be something that you figure out early on, is you have to be relatable to your customers. And then you got to have some type of trust, and that's part, whether it's in a warranty, whether it's in customer service, whether it's in an experience with the product, you have to gain trust, or you're not going to be successful.
Yeah. You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say customers like something that's relatable to them, man. It makes them feel good. Mm-hmm. So I guess we can segue out of this and go into a little bit of highlighting some of your new products you just released. We can start off with the camera mount. You guys just released that in December, right?
Yeah. I think we were shooting for January 1st. I think we ended up doing it like the last 2 weeks of December, Yeah. So for us, it's always, I don't know, fluid whether we can get it done or not, because we always typically shoot for some hard deadlines. But to start off with, and some of these, basically, it's kind of our camera mounts reimagined. Mm-hmm. We figured out, what were things we'd like to improve on. And one of them was the functionality of when I first started, we sold 16, 17 different camera mounts. Mm-hmm. That's confusing for consumers to buy. That's confusing for our dealers to buy. And the big reason was because whether you have a GoPro or whether you have, a quarter 20, a regular camera, or whether it's like I think a Sony or like in Tova, there's a couple brands that use a quarter 20 rather than the GoPro interface. And so we'd have to sell them both ways. We'd have to sell, this little mount, that's a simple little track mount that's fairly inexpensive. We'd have to sell it with and without a GoPro mount. And it becomes confusing. And like someone like me is like, this is my camera. I also have GoPros. So, I also, I could put a, big full frame camera up there if I wanted to, and it was a nice day on the water, so I like to have some options. So it's easier for our dealers because, when interviewing our dealers back in the day, I was like, do you guys sell GoPro? They're like, no. I'm like, don't carry the GoPro one then. Cause but then they got to carry a separate little ball and it becomes a pain. So, this is kind of the first one starting off is what we call the articulating camera mount. And it was just it's a screw ball that goes right into your track, that's built right into your Kusa HD and right into your SS127 that are both the YakAttack track. And essentially you got some little articulation here. And then you go up to the camera ball. So regular GoPro mount up top. And then to get to the quarter 20 mount, you just screw it off, so it's super simple, super easy. And that one comes in right at $25. So, to me, especially if you're trying to take it serious, a lot of guys, especially in the world of cameras, you can buy a $40, action camera right now that's waterproof and probably shoots at least 1080, so technology's gotten so cheap. So a lot of people can afford multiple camera angles, because no one wants to see, the crotch shot, looking up at someone for the whole time. A couple shots.
The Gene Jensen special.
But Gene gets it up. Gene actually uses...
He does now, but dude, he made fun of himself so bad about that. He was so excited at one of his last videos where he was talking about the new mounts, and he's like, guys, no more crotch shots. Like, he said it was one of the things everybody gave him such a hard time for when he was in his kayak, and it was awesome seeing his video for it. Like, that's the kind of stuff that's kind of cool, seeing somebody kind of poke fun at themselves a little bit and have a good time with it. But yeah, dude, it's
got to, especially someone like Gene with such a big following. And to me, if you don't have any haters, you're not doing anything right. Especially with him, like, he's not trying to follow the rest of what everyone else does. And his goal is he wants to teach people, so he's going to get some haters come out of the woodwork, but no, I've seen him. He's moved to what we call the Panfish. So this is the Panfish Pro, and the Panfish Pro comes in at, let me pull up my notes real quick. The Panfish Pro is 33 inches tall. So the thing about these camera mounts that's different from the old ones is the old ones basically just had the mount in the bottom and it was fixed length. That was it. Yeah. It had some articulation. So if you twist in the middle, that's why we call it the Panfish, because it pans without having to loosen the bottom. So at that height is great. Gene likes it right in front of him. He likes that kind of chest height perspective that it's kind of a little bit more formal and it just looks a little bit better. So I think that he typically would throw a boomstick in the back and have the over the shoulder perspective. But then also have, the kind of chest height. But even if you had this up front, it's not too bad in the way, as long as, it depends on what you're fishing. I wouldn't go out there and fish for big bull reds and stuff, and have a big pole mounted in the front. But bass fishing on a lake, you're probably good. But one thing we changed, and it's what we were talking about earlier of, I think it was the team, it was consumers, it was, people was like, we love the interface. We want the easy on and off of the lock and load base. We love that. It's super simple, super easy, super easy to adjust. So it had everything living, everything going for it. So he slammed it with the bottom of the panfish. And so what that also does, instead of just a straight up rigid pole, it has that articulation to where if you one day, or whether you're using like a paddleboard, want to put it flat on the deck, adjust the camera up at you, and then this plays basically flat on the deck. So you can have any range of motion there and camera angle that you need, to where, you look at a lot of videos and it could be, a chesty or the head cam or the crotch shot. But a lot of the unique ones are going to be an off the boat perspective that's looking, like a 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, off the side of the boat. That could be a dude in the water. It could be like a swimmer they have like at the Extreme Kayak Fishing Challenge, tournaments down there in Pompano that for sailfish, like get someone in the water. But for me, I fish a lot by myself. We tend to work hard and not have a lot of time. So when I got the time, I'm going. So I don't have to, make sure I'm fishing with people. So if I'm filming myself, having that unique angle off the side or having, several camera angles is important.
Yeah.
So that's going to be what we call the Panfish Pro, and that was going to come in at $100. And one thing that's unique about the lock and load base in general, that's the same thing for our fish finder mounts, and probably more useful in the rod holder perspective or also in the camera mount perspective, is go ahead and buy a couple extra track bases and put them in different spots. So throughout the day, instead of watching the same camera angle all day, I can take this, swap it over to another one, and swap it to a different one quick and easy, so you're not locked into, you got to, put it on the rotational and it's going to take you a couple seconds. With this, if you have a lock and load base there, pop that trigger and swap it, put it somewhere else, so you could switch where you had a rod holder there, put a rod holder, change that up and change it up. But I mean, there's some power from a filmmaking perspective of the ability of these, so having that lock and load base and quick ability to adjust, but also by being able to get off the side of the boat or be able to get flat on the deck and shoot a unique angle, or be straight up and mounted on top, of a crate or something like that. There's some power to that for sure. So that's gonna be the Panfish Pro, and then we move on to the younger brother of that one, and it's still in the Panfish family, but doesn't have the same built-in mechanism. So this is going to be what we call the Panfish Portrait. And this is the Panfish Portrait Pro. And same thing up top, you get the ability for GoPro quarter 20 mounting. So, DJI is going to work with the GoPro interface, and all the other, a lot of the other brands are going to use that. Some of them use the quarter 20 tripod stud. Nice beefy knob, really nice in weather, whether it's wet or dry outside. And then same thing with the bottom. You got the easy adjustment built in that lock and load system. So if you want to take that down and want to adjust that, you can easy. So, I mean, it stands about 11.5 inches tall, but if you want it flat, adjust the ball and get whatever angle you need out of it. So a lot of filmmaking perspective, and then a little bit different than the original Panfish Pro that we just saw. The ability to change the angle is just built into the lock and load base. So you squeeze that trigger, it picks up, pick your angle, and go down with it. So it was just easier to put it in there rather than have, another pivot point up top and a pivot point down there. So that's kind of what we opted for. But same thing with that, lock and load base, simple, easy, on and quick. The only thing with this one is that it does not float. So this one, and then obviously the smaller one, aren't going to float. You might want to put a floaty on the back. But as far as the medium size one, the Panfish Pro, regular size action cam, if it drops in the water, peace of mind. Drop in the water, the whole thing is going to float, and you don't have to worry about it falling and or sinking and losing your gear. So and that's important, because I mean, a lot of us, we lose you lose a jackhammer and you're pissed off. It doesn't matter what it is or how much it costs. I mean, to me, I lose any lure, I get, I'm a little butthurt there for a little while, but
I'm the same way.
It is what it is.
I've watched Brad cuss at Ned Riggs. So
I mean, especially like a Ned rig for me, like without the weedless guard, I get that thing hung up so many times that
Yeah.
there's a love-hate relationship with that setup. But
Well, in his defense, it usually comes like when he ties on a brand new one and they get stuck on the first cast. So like I get it. Like I'm the same way, man. The first cast snag, you're just like, oh, I couldn't have got at least five,
Yeah.
that's all I needed.
you gotta pay for it in fish, but no, you paid for it in pride for sure.
I had a question about those mounts there. Do you guys make any attachments for cell phones to go on top?
Nothing yet. No, I mean, that's something that really for us, and I mean, this goes back 3 years, but essentially, we used to work very heavily with RAM mounts.
Mm-hmm.
The original Zuka tube was a YakAttack design rod holder kind of in conjunction with RAM. And essentially, if you bought a track mounted ball in the world of paddlesports, it came from us,
Yeah.
So there was a lot of different things with that relationship, but eventually, we parted ways. I think this would have been last year was the third full season. So we went 3 full seasons without camera mounts. And then really the last piece of the pie that we used to sell, and I sold it very effectively. I sold it very well. And it worked pretty well. Not the best one-handed articulation, in and out from a phone perspective, but I use an X grip. I mean, I've used it in the past, and it's one that we'd like to. I'd say it's on the hot list. I'd say that
I'm waiting, man.
I can't say when or where it's gonna come, but it's something that's a big one for us because kind of getting in this marine market, the phone holder is the one crossover product that works in everything. People in combines and tractors and ATVs.
Yeah, you can put it on
matter.
anything.
Because I mean, especially when you guys had the suction cup mount, that sort of thing, that whole setup that originally had come out was, I mean, I still use it to this day, man. I use it as my GPS instead of, worrying about buying a GPS, enabled screen in the truck or whatever. I was like, I don't need it. I got my phone. I've got an X grip. I can keep everything, wired up right there, and it works great. So, like it is though. I'll be honest with you. It is a little cumbersome, I guess you could call it. Like to try, it's not very one-handed friendly. Like it works well, but it's a little sketchy sometimes when you start fumbling around with it and trying to adjust it and that sort of thing, because it works well, but almost too well in a sense. Like you feel like your phone's stuck in it almost, like because if you're trying to do it, it's not you can't do it one-handed. You got to use two. So if you're out there fishing or something like that, it kind of seems, unless you've got it close to you, but if you got it kind of a distance, man, like you're gonna have to, like, especially if you tend to put it, like I know some people are running video like using their phones behind them, like on the old Coosa HD boomstick that came with it, and I'm like, dude, you got to get it. You got to get out of the boat. You can't get that thing out turning around like that. I mean, you could, but you're asking for trouble. So
but yeah, I mean, that's something that we want to develop. That's where the last thing that we sold that at that point in time in that chapter of YakAttack that we need to work on and develop and finish that project and get it to market, because that's a good product for us, and and towards the later ends of selling those products, we did well with it. So but we'll see what happens down the road. See when it comes, and then kind of going back to that, old, was it when the Coosa HD first launched? Was it every one of them came with a boomstick?
I think pretty much. Yeah, I know. I have the second year that it was out. I want to say. I think it was one year before.
2017, possibly. I think it was 2015 or 16 was year one.
I have a 2015. Yeah, and it came with it. It came with the one, the one that mounts in that. Oh, I don't even know what the mount would be called. It's like a button. You just kind of pull it out and the whole thing kind of pops out. It's a great idea. The only big problem with it is it has a lot of play in it. Like, so if you look at that, you put a GoPro on it, it shakes real bad back there. But, that was the only kind of gripe I've ever had with it. But I mean, I've never even really shot like a lot of videos. So I don't have a GoPro. I borrowed a couple here and there, but the ones that I have were recent and they had image stabilization anyways built into them. So you could hear it moving, there was a lot of like noise in a sense, the clicking and of that, but you couldn't really see the shake. But that was just because I was using a Hero 7, I had image stability built into it. So, but yeah, I'm interested in hearing about this next one because I know that's kind of like the same thing basically. So
Yeah, this was
just
kind
another
of
take.
the boomstick reimagined, and
Yeah.
I mean, in the boomstick, I mean, in general, I mean, especially when kayaks, I mean, you can't stand there in a kayak, perfectly level. Most boats, I mean, the original boats are, built off a tri-hull that its stability is on the, primary stability is there, so it just sits on the chine. Nowadays, a lot of, even something like the Coosa HD is more of a tri-hull, or, the Bonafide being that hybrid catamaran design. So, I mean, it's a little bit different than what it used to be, but if you get something outside of a boat that's going to have, a little bit of wobble, it results in 3 or 4 inches at the end. So,
Yeah.
it's a lot of movement, image stabilization, and especially, the newer GoPros or the DJIs and that type of stuff, I mean, has definitely helped. But also I think we've improved on our side as well. One thing we've made the change from that, if you look back at those in original camera mounts, there was actually PVC. So we used a very thick black PVC. And I mean, PVC, there's a lot of stuff used in PVC. It's not, plumber's PVC that you're going to see running through your, house or whatever, or underneath your sink. It was different grade PVC, but it's still, polyvinyl, whatever it stands for, it's still the same chemical makeup. But one thing we've moved to was we've moved to anodized aluminum. So all of these, it's reduced the diameter by about 10%. We've also lightened the load a little bit, so there's less swing weight with this product compared to what you used to see with the original boomstick. So same thing with the Panfish Pro and the Panfish Portrait Pro, is they both are going to have an anodized aluminum core compared to that PVC core. But same thing with this guy. You're looking at around 55.5 inches tall, or 51.5. Sorry, so 51.5 inches tall. This is going to be one that I could put it straight up in the air and have that cool kind of over the shoulder shot, or mount it and change the angle at the bottom with the lock and load base and get that cool angle off the side of the boat. But same thing with why we called it the boomstick to begin with, was you're typically going to have your camera ball angled a little bit to get down to you anyways. But one thing, all you got to do is just take the lock and load base, pop it, and then there's a handheld boom, a handheld giant selfie stick.
That's cool.
So like that was the original naming, convention and reasoning for the boomstick, was being a handheld boom. Whether you wanted to shoot, release of a fish in some clear water, or, get a cool pan shot of you with a cool vista in the background, or a sunset, or, your buddies in the background hanging out. So that's going to be the boomstick. So same thing with that. We've got, the whole thing floats, drop in the water, it's not going to matter. And then you've got your camera head up top. So GoPro and quarter 20 mounts, and, simple little ball system. So
very cool.
Yeah, that's the last of the camera bunch then?
Yep, that was going to be the last of the camera mounts. And then kind of one of our next new products that, I mean, this was actually a big one for one of our team guys. I think it was one of our team guys that at the time was working at a dealer down south in Florida, and he was like, well, even I dealt with it, when we would do any installs back at the retail side, years ago, I would literally buy it from Hobie or buy it from a competitor, was the through-hole wiring kit, because at the time that's all that existed. I know Jackson had one, Wilderness Systems released one maybe last year, but most of those I think required backside hole access. So you needed an area that you had to put, screw on a little back cap or collar to compress it and make sure it was watertight. So for us, that was a really big one that we wanted. So, this small little part, which, what we're selling. So this is just the through-hole wiring kit, just to make it plain and simple. I didn't really need a trade name or anything for that. What you actually get, and it's going to be $20 retail. You're actually getting 2 of them. So compared to, some in the market, half the price. So it's a good value. But one thing you do get is you get a variety of these grommets. So they're basically free-size, to where the evolution of fish finders, we've definitely have been in the time where it's evolved, because, I've got an old, my Lowrance Elite 7, my my Elite 7 that I've got, I mean, the biggest wire on that one's probably this guy.
Yeah.
But then, on my Raymarine Element 9 that I'm about to do an install with it, then you got, that size. So it's things have been, the image and the visualizations that you get from these transducers has increased so much. So definitely we've got, your big holes if you need it. But one thing you do is you just pop them in, so they basically you got a simple little collar. And so it doesn't matter which way these angle. If you've got a tight space where this design only fits in a certain area on your kayak, it doesn't matter which way that you have to orient the wires. The wires could be there, they could be vertical. It doesn't matter. It just presses in, and then you can kind of see it. There's a little bit of rubber on the underside. So as that compresses with the boat, and I would put a dab of silicone. I would silicone the middle and then a little bit on the underside, and put it in place. And basically the same attachment method as our GT175 track or the Mighty Mount XL. Just drill your pilot holes and then hand tighten your hardware. So no silicone on the actual hardware and attachment, but on the grommet itself, I'd put a little dab of silicone. But pretty slick, pretty cool product that for me, if you're one of our dealers and you don't sell a certain brand of kayaks that makes one, you're kind of out of luck. You didn't really have an avenue. So, I remember doing an old GI. No, it was predated the GI Jackson. I don't know what the name was. I think it was just Olive. But it was an old original Coosa HD, and I did this build that, we got a custom marine grade leather seat. We rhino lined a black pack so it was tan. Basically, I wanted to look like an old army Jeep. And then I had a nice, other brand of kayak branded through hole connector to do the fish finder install. And so it makes it easy for our dealers to have options. That's kind of one of my strategies is, I want to make sure that I'm a one-stop shop for our customers. And there's certain things we're never going to make, but I want to try to have it as many options as possible. So that guy's going to be the through hole wiring kit coming in at $20, and dealers been buying those like crazy just because it's a simple, easy to mount. It just mounted it from the top. You don't need any of that backside access, and that makes all the difference. That makes it simple and easy, and it's clean. It's really, really low profile. I mean, you're looking maybe 0.2 inches tall, so really, really low profile. So it's out of the way. I'm about to do an install. I probably should do it. It's probably gonna be next week, but do a Raymarine Element 9 on my dry pod for my SS127. So we'll probably have an install video of that up here in about 2 or 3 weeks.
I was going to mention that a lot of bona fide owners, they're using the dry pod to mount their fish finder on top of. Is that through hole transducer or through hole kit? Is that designed specifically to go on the backside of the dry pod like people are doing?
You could, yeah. I mean, we just, for the most part, we were talking about the Roto Grip earlier, and it's a great product. I mean, it was a one that probably opened up our eyes and our mind into not just hardcore kayak fishing, because at that time, the previous year, I think we were making like 30, 45 different power pole plates and a whole bunch of different stuff that was model specific, and that was the first product we ever made that was just paddle sports. So anyone on the water, even your pedal drive guys, you got to put a paddle somewhere in case you break a drive on Okeechobee or Kentucky Lake, and you get stuck out there, with all the barge traffic on the Tennessee River and white capped, and so you gotta have a backup. But that original product, when we made it, we realized on something like the Coosa HD or the Wilderness Systems Attack or the Bonafide SS series, is that the boss strap or the retainment strap or the bungee up front on the bow was taller than where the track was mounted. So if you put your paddle blade in the front of a Coosa HD and you got one paddle holder on the side for the, for your paddle and in the track, it won't make it, so you've got to raise up your paddle holders. So when we were designing that product, we were like, well, we want it to be as low profile and out of the way as possible. On that one, I think that one was maybe not a miscue, because all we got to, we have ways to raise it up if we want. But with something like this, that's kind of the goal of everything we do, is it needs to be aesthetically pleasing. It needs to fit the brand language that we've created in recent years, so it all looks like it belongs with the YakAttack. But also, I want it to be out of the way. I want it to be. Granted, you have wires coming out of here. It's not going to be a true snag-free product, but that's kind of the end game from a product design perspective, is we want to make it as snag-free as possible. And as low profile and as least intrusive as possible. So yeah, it works perfectly, on your dry pod from your SS series from Bonafide, on your flex pod from Wilderness Systems on a lot of their kayaks, and I know it will work for several others. But just a simple, really easy to use product that works, great for fish finders, or if you're running any LEDs, or a lot of guys are running like the switches and paneling that they can have to run and make sure they're powering, their fish finders. They got USB ports in their boats now. So anytime you're running wires, I mean, this is just a simple, easy product to use for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. You're literally saying everything that I thought when I first saw that product. So I'm like, yeah, I need to get me a couple of those. Those things are awesome. You just came out with another new product Friday, and that was called the Turnkey Track Adapter, correct?
Yeah.
It's not kayak related, but I mean, we can go into it, right?
Basically, yeah, we can talk about it. I mean, because like for us, like we've got a number of people on our pro team that a third of them own power boats. So I think that kayaks are great. I love to paddle. I love to I do use a Torqeedo sometimes as well. But at the same time, if you want to take the family out and go fishing, if you want to, go cover a lot more water, there's sometimes that boats, are going to make sense. So a lot of these guys, I mean, whether it's skiffs, whether it's, big offshore boats, or it kind of in this case is going to be, aluminum John boats and bay boats. So this is a hunk. This is a piece off of a Ranger. And essentially, there's all these different brands of boats. You've got Crestliner, Ranger, G3, Lund, War Eagle, Lowe, Duracraft, Tracker, and Triton are all going to have either, they're either all aluminum, or some like Triton, they're only going to make a few aluminum boats in their lineup, but they all feature a track like this. And really, for the most part, these manufacturers aren't making a whole lot of accessories for the boat brands themselves aren't. And then really in our world, there's no one really catering to this, but like for us, we didn't create track. We didn't create track on a kayak. Wilderness Systems was the first to use it. We just brought track in from a DIY perspective. So we know track. I mean, we've got 15 to 20 different brands of kayaks that buy our track now. So basically, for the most part, minus the Feel Free line, Joy Sports line, or I think it's Joy Sports. Johnny Boat, Feel Free, and Three Waters. They use a whole different track that takes an adapter from us. But once you put a little $4 to $5 adapter on there, you're good to go. You buy a track mounted accessory, it's going to work on your Kusa HD, and it's going to work on your Bonafide. There's not a whole lot of guesswork to do. But in this market, I mean, there's, I'd say, hundreds of thousands of these boats that have been sold over the past 20, 30 years that, when talking to some of these guys, they're like, well, why did you use a 45-degree gunnel here? And on this boat, you used a 90-degree. They're like, dude, we have no idea. Like, it's just, I don't know. Like, it's a weird one, but there hasn't been any standardization of angles or, the depth of the slot. Like, it's not like our world where we're like, if you buy a kayak right now, there is a strong chance it's the YakAttack gear track. There is a very strong chance that it is anything from, the, Emotion, Evoke, all the way to Perception, and then Bonafide, or there's even some paddle brands, like Live Water Sports and Dragonfly that are putting track on their crafts, So if you got track on there, it's like, okay, I'm going to go buy, some type of track mounted accessory, and it could be ours, it could be someone else, but it works. So in this world, it's not really the same. So one thing we did, and this one's got kind of it's called the Turnkey. So basically, the thing about the Turnkey is it's a totally different bolt. So the bolt is slender. It kind of almost looks like a prop in shape.
Yeah.
But what that does, one thing it enables is you're able to top load it directly into that track. Because on some of these boats, there's not even an entry point. The track is solid. It is complete all the way through. Some brands will do like a little pilot hole, and you're supposed to use a carriage bolt. The head of a carriage bolt goes in there, and the square neck on the carriage bolt locks into the track, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But on this guy, you can top load it anywhere you want within that slot. It can go here, it can go here. It doesn't matter. But the unique thing about our system, and the unique thing that no one had done, so we immediately filed a patent on it, was basically how it locks in place.
Yeah.
So what it does is as you tighten, it's going to keep that bolt at a 45-degree angle within the track, so it's not ever going to come loose. It's not ever going to vibrate through trailering the boat for a couple hours and eventually fall out of the track. That it's going to stay non-parallel with that track to where it's going to lock in place. So that is kind of essentially what we call the turnkey. So right now we've got a 45-degree mount and then also a 90-degree mount. And between two of those, it covers 9 different brands. So
Nice.
we're working
That's
on.
awesome.
We'll potentially, I would say, have 4 or 5 different angles. I know we've got a 55-degree one we're working on. I know that there's potentially just a couple more brands that we're trying to locate and do some research on, but probably 3 or 4. Maybe if you have 4 brackets, we covered 15 different brands. But what that does is it opens up, those owners that, I guess there's maybe 1 or 2 guys in our current team that have these boats, but you've got all of these different anglers and boat owners that then get introduced to, all the different products, like all the different rod holders we make, all the different fish finder mounts we make, and just, to me, what we've done with the lock and load system and just, what we do in house with all of our molds, it's a superior product to most, so it gives that community, innovative, unique products that, we're still going to be heavily involved. We've got some banger products coming out, in the kayak paddle space. But right now, like paddlesports, it is just it's a pepperoni on a slice of pie, so it's one that, I work every day to grow it. I work every day to grow paddlesports, but that one is essentially low hanging fruit to, 4 or 5 different mounts for those boats. And, we've got a whole different array of anglers, to pour more, jet fuel within YakAttack and see what we can do, 10 years from now, so that one just came out. We're kind of taking pre-orders right now. I would expect us to just pull the trigger and open it up live this week. So basically end of February, beginning of March, be ready to go live. And I know I've got a bunch of dealers lined up and a bunch of consumers ready. So I expect it's going to be unique for us. It's going to be unique to get in that market. It's going to be unique for me from a marketing perspective that I literally fish off a boat like 5 times a year, if that, so I'm predominantly almost 100% fishing from a kayak or a paddleboard, or wading, if I'm fly fishing certain spots, in the rivers. So get in my mind, I'm going to have to kind of what we were talking about earlier of knowing your consumer, knowing your industry, so we've got a small little aluminum tracker back at the shop. We've got a small little micro skiff. I would say, this time next year, who knows what we would have sitting in our warehouse or parking lot that we're going to have to learn it. We're going to have to become that customer to know what that customer needs. So at least right now, we're kind of rely a little bit more on our pro team for some insight, but also, we're smart people. Kind of, and it's kind of the same thing as, all YakAttack is, we're not a kayak fishing company. We're a small space organization company that focuses on kayak fishing. It's the same thing in a boat. It's just a small space that you need storage for, tools and tackle and, mounts for electronics and gear, so I think that there's a lot of crossover that is easy to adapt to. So that one. And then I've also got one more in the kayak space that was, I think it was within the past couple months, but a little bit more of a budget driven paddle holder. And kind of doing some different things that people hadn't done. A taco clip kind of style paddle holder, it exists. There's several companies. But one that, whenever you slip your nice carbon paddle into it and it just slams down, that we wanted to put some nice rubber bumpers. So we've got 2 rubber bumpers on each side that protrude up from the surface on the actual clip itself. And then kind of tie in, most of the built-in paddle holders on your kayaks, like the Bonafide has, or I think that the Kusa HD has maybe one, is going to be a retainment strap. Is going to be huge. For peace of mind.
I actually like that a lot better than the rubber pieces that you see on the typical taco clips. That little strap's pretty cool.
Yeah. So that one's a cool one. That's just called the Padlock paddle holder, and that one comes in at $12. Because with this one, you're definitely only going to need one. And I know a lot of guys that whether they had a stock paddle holder came on their boat, some of the pedal drives do, or some of the other brands have them on the side, and they work. But people have played with this. They like the holding power. They like the strap, so they were able to actually take that off. And with how we did the bottom we put a slot right here and then a single hole. So really any paddle holder will along that line of having that mounting area right there, those dimensions, you can change it out and swap it out. So I've known several consumers to swap out paddle holders that came on their boat or ones that they installed after the fact. And they're like, we really like the retainment strap and then the rubber bumper functionality. So that was going to be another cool one for us of kind of my goal of, I want to make sure that our dealers have the right tools for success. Cause I guess for you, Jason, do you use 1 or 2 Rotogrip paddle holders?
I have 2. Yeah, and that was the one thing, like you were talking about having the strap, up front being slightly higher than where, I ended up utilizing just 2, but it was always kind of a thing of like I can't get real close to a bank. Like say I'm kind of fishing a river and I need to get in that like calm water seam to throw over there, and I got to get right up on the bank with it so I can kick a foot over, onto the bank, hold myself with a rock or whatever. So it was always kind of a pain in a sense when you got 2 of them, because, I've got that thing extended out. So, but I've always loved it because if I'm fishing and it's open and I'm standing, it's right there, it's easily, I could get to it easy. I'm not unstrapping anything, I could put it down there fairly well, like it's always worked real good. So, but I do like with the new style that you, that lock system with the bungee, because it's kind of solving a problem that there was 2 versions in a sense. And it was either A, you had bungees there, or B, you had the clip there, but no bungees in a sense. And that's kind of cool that you guys combine both ideas together to make like one system like that. Cause I literally never utilized the bungee system on my kayak, on the Kusa, because that's what it originally was. The hell there was 2 bungees that came like from one point and extended outward up on top of the boat that had 2 points where it hooked onto, and I hated it. It just felt insecure, like,
yeah.
And it all it would take would be like one of them to be undone, and you could potentially, like, your paddle could slide out. You're probably not going to lose it because the blade's going to stop it, but there it is, like hanging in the water or whatnot, But yeah, I have 2. I love them. So like that was the only issue I ever really ran into. So I've always considered kind of raising them up, but I always liked having the ability to have it just all the way across the front of the boat like that. Brad's seen it and he's like, those are awesome. I'm like, yeah, it's great. But until you want to get real close up, under some cover or something like that, right up on the bank, it's kind of a pain. But, once you get used to it, you get used to it and you learn to, move the paddle, out of the way or whatever you need to do. So, I mean, even with the Rotogrip, but one thing I noticed is, how we were talking about you sliding the paddle up in the front, up underneath the bungee, or now they've got the rubber band across the front, right? But I always kind of noticed that, like, even like my Rotogrip act as like kind of a block, like from my paddle wanting to slide that way, like out of the boat, even though it wasn't mounted into it, it kind of kept it in check and in a certain area. They kind of helped that way. So
yeah, the rubber rollers. I mean, I won't even engage it fully sometimes. I'll just lay it on there, and you can fully move you can apply a lot of pressure and that paddle really not move. But yeah, I'll shoot you a message after this and show you kind of the DIY setup. That actually, to be honest, I mean that this kind of just sums up YakAttack. But I'll just make it real quick. That that's kind of the beauty of what we've built in the past couple of years is you're able to take like the 90-degree mount that we were just talking about for the boat world. Uh-huh. This is actually a product that we designed for the kayak space as well, and really just kind of fell into it that it made sense for that 90-degree mount in the powerboat world. That once you are able to take off the base, so you take a lock and load base,
mm-hmm.
and then you take the 90-degree mount that has a built-in mighty mount on the top. you're able to take that, pair it up with that base, reassemble, tighten it back up. And one thing this is nice you can do with is, if you've got your paddle blade up on the front of a Bonafide or that Cruise HD or an Attack, that paddle's not going to be flat. That paddle's going to be angled up.
Yeah.
So you're able to take this and cater that angle. And so all you got to do is take that paddle holder and get that T-bolt, that mighty bolt, and it just slides right in here. You tighten it down, and then there's basically going to be of how you raise a rotogrip paddle holder in 2 simple products.
Yeah, I need to get me one of those. That's cool.
And Brad, I wanted to point out, Brad got jealous that I have the old dog bone, and I don't think it's being made anymore. Correct?
Which I guess what product specifically was it?
I want to say it was it had the 1.5 inch ball on the bottom, and it had the joint where you could kind of adjust it that way. But Brad, you were talking about it. You got all jealous when I showed it to him. I was like, yeah, I got this not that long ago, but now it doesn't seem like it's in production anymore. And it's the one, it's like 12 inches long. It's all foam, and it's got a 1.5 at the bottom and then a 1 inch at the top.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And Brad's like, cause he's like all jealous. But Brad, when I was noticing what he was doing with the panfish portrait, that's about the same exact size. It's literally maybe just 1/2 inch shorter, and you have 100 times more different angle options than what the dog bone had. So
I gotcha.
So one thing you can do, like in that orientation that I think you probably got maybe the dog bone camera mount. So it's got, it had a 1.5 inch screw ball at the bottom, and then it goes into, a 1.5 inch ball to a 12 inch extension up to that 1 inch camera ball, and then that's where you would mount your camera head up top. But the beauty of all of these products, like the new Panfish Portrait Pro, is really the height is limitless. That you could essentially take. So we still sell one dog bone extension arm, but it's really just a mighty bolt that goes in your track to a 1/4 20 extension. Really, it's meant to increase the height of your VisiCarbon Pro. But mount this guy to the top of it. Mount your articulating camera mount to the top. Just take out your mighty bolt on the bottom, screw it on that 1/4 20 base on top of the 12 inch dog bone extension, and then therefore you got one in the middle. You got one that's 3 or 4 inches taller than this. It's about maybe 8 inches shorter than the Panfish. But one thing about this guy is I just took the Zuka 2 apart, and so I'm able to take this base.
Nice.
And so I can take that apart. And then basically, this is going to be pretty dang close to the original, dog bone camera mount that we sold. And so then therefore, and the nice thing about this, they're just so incredibly rigid. The base is so nice and rigid that you don't have a ball at the bottom to worry about. And then the ball at the top. Ball at the top is just because it's the camera world. I mean, if you guys are shooting anything, tripods, whatever, it's typically based around a ball. So with this is, I took and kind of hybridized, had the lock and load base, a forearm extension, and then put the top of the Panfish Portrait Pro. And then I get a kind of a one that's completely in the middle. And I've got 3 points of articulation. I've got the base, I've got the top of the extension arm, and then the 2 camera balls up top. So that's one thing that we've really made sure to do is make sure that this is like an adult erector set. Or Angler Lincoln logs. I mean, this is basically the goal that if I can take a product and use it in a way that I've never intended it to, or, paired these together and made this work, or that's the goal, because people are creative. People they're originally creative, they're naturally creative, so therefore, and same thing with fishing is like, I might not really use my Ned rig like you use your Ned rig. I'm mostly getting hung up in trees and bushes, but there might be
hung up in rocks.
There might be better ways to fish it, or different, or different colors, different ways of presenting it. It's like same thing with anglers is there's no 2 anglers that fish the same. There's no 2 kayak anglers that rig the same. And that's the beauty of the product line that we have come to creation and come to making is it all works together. So there's some brand language through the product, line of YakAttack that you can take a camera mount and slam it with a rod holder and use a part and component from here to there. So I've got in my, my gear room basically a whole box of spare parts that, if I'm trying to sit down and rig up a new boat or figure out a solution, I can just go in my box of tricks and rig something up, So that's all part of the fun.
Awesome, dude. Well, we're a little bit over time here, but I think it was necessary to talk about the products and stuff. Some cool conversation here. We are going to start winding it down unless you have anything else you wanted to add at all.
No, that's good right now. I mean, whenever some new stuff, and keep your eyes peeled. I know we've got some cool stuff in the pipeline. So, definitely this year it's going to be pretty constant. So it'd be almost monthly.
Awesome, dude.
We'll have to keep inviting you back, man.
Yeah, no, I mean,
for real, let's do it.
Every 6 months, it's probably worth, having a recap. But, it's gonna be 5 or 6 new products every 6 months for sure.
That's awesome. I do have one more quick question. Do you guys have any any plans to make like a kayak cart at all?
Yeah. I mean, it's.
Like
one.
Brad,
I mean,
why'd you have to ask that?
That's been on the hot list. It's just one that I don't know. We basically had a design a long time ago that was just made, and it was simple and easy. And it was a team guy. He drew it on a napkin, and we were talking about that a couple weeks ago while we were on a trip, and basically it was someone from a different company that just came out with a cart, and we're like, yeah, that was it. It was more of the attachment method, and they did a good job. They made a good cart. But for us, that's a necessity down the road, So I would say that it's probably not a 2020 thing. But who knows? I think that's something that, that's a product we'd love to develop for sure.
Awesome. I'd really love to see like that product come out in a sense and be able to do like what Boondocks is doing without the worry of the damage that everybody's been talking about for a while, because as these kayaks get bigger and bigger and bigger, like I have a Sea Tug and I love it, man. Like I could collapse it down. It fits in the front hatch of the Kusa. But at the same time, I'm like, dude, trying to put, a big rig FD or a Hobie on that. I know it can be done. A lot of people do it and they deal with it. But at the same time, I'm like, there's just something about being able to roll up, drop those wheels down, get out of the boat and just walk straight up and not have to, put together a cart or hope to God that you line it up perfectly and that cart's not sliding down into the water, down to the ramp. You'll have to ask Jay about that, Brad.
All right.
Watching him try to put that.
I think we've all been through that. We've all had those cart horror stories, or the cart's crab walking sideways, and the hole doesn't fit it perfectly, and it's one of those that we should solve, So it's I don't know. I'd keep your eyes peeled, and I know we've got to
understand. It kind of is come along with the weight of these boats, and then just in the past couple of years though is where we've really seen the explosion of these giant kayaks that are weighing 140 pounds. There was a need for it, but like I can understand why it really wasn't chased after that much, because everything was still somewhat manageable by hand in a way, but now it's getting to be like, you got 60-year-old guys who really do want that nice big stable kayak, but they can't manhandle it around, like there's, that's what was cool about seeing the Blue Sky when it did come out, like, and the wheel system that it has, it's really simple, and it takes a giant, one of the biggest kind of platforms that are out there like that, and makes it super manageable for all kinds of people, like that's what's crazy about that system. People were like, oh dude, it's not a kayak. Well, not everybody has to be a kayak tournament person. So whether or not they got a personal watercraft that's stable like that and they're comfortable and they can sit in that thing, why not go get one? Doesn't matter if it's a true kayak or not, but that system that they kind of have for the wheels is just, it's a great idea, and it'd be cool to see YakAttack or even some of the kayak companies be able to integrate more of that into their boat design, to where it's not so damaging, I guess. Yeah. But I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. It'll be cool.
Same here. So wind this thing down. John, we appreciate you coming on, man, talking YakAttack.
Pleasure.
you have any plugs? Anybody you want to thank? Any sponsors? Where
No,
people
man.
can follow you?
No, just, to me, I think keep your eyes on YakAttack and see what we do over the next couple months. And, one thing that we are working on right now is we're doing a massive, massive giveaway. It's one of the largest I've seen in kayak fishing.
Yep.
It's an RS 117. You get a Raymarine Element. You get, an action cam from Tacticam, 2 PFDs from NRS, 13 Fishing's got rods and reels, and Spro did a package, and Gamakatsu, and the list goes on and on. I know I'm going to miss some people because there's probably, I think, 16, 17 different sponsors with that. But you get anything from coolers to action cams to, Keenon sunglasses. You get 2 pairs of those that are about $250 a pop. So I think we're right around $7,750 worth of gear for that giveaway. And all you got to do is go to our website, and it's in the menu bar. It's just a contest and giveaway tab. And you'll see it right there. And enter, and really it's based around YakAttack hitting 40,000 followers or 40,000 likes on Instagram. We've already hit 40,000 on we've already hit 40,000 on Instagram. Then we did a $500 gift card for that guy that won that one. And then the next one is we got to hit 40,000 on Facebook. So I think I looked today, I think we're like 1,800 away or 1,850 away. So I would say another 3 weeks. And then by the end of March, someone's going to have a pretty sweet package delivered to their door. So just check out that at yakattack.us.
Yep. I definitely shared that on my Instagram story too. So if anybody who listens follows me, you can find it that way too. So good stuff. Appreciate you coming on again. Josh, you want to take us out?
Yeah, I just want to thank John also for coming on, talking YakAttack with us, John. You're always more than welcome to come back anytime if you want to, get on and showcase some new stuff or whatever. Feel free to reach out to us. And, we've got multiple different, podcasts actually just through Paddle and Fin. So if there's anything you want to join in on any of the different episodes or whatnot, you want to share some fishing tactics with Ryan or whatever, man, just reach out. We're more than happy to have any of our guests back. We're out there. Our main kind of mission, in a sense, falls along with what YakAttack. We want to put out stuff for people that they're going to have a benefit, and it's going to help them. It's going to help them grow as anglers, as kayakers, whatever. So if you guys got questions or anything like that for John, you can always reach out on his social media as well. And he's always more helpful with any questions that you guys have. But, I do with that, I just want to say, to all the listeners, thanks for listening. Spread the PNF word. We're really itching to get back out there soon. I know I am. I know Brad is. Yep. And a lot of us through Paddle and Fin tend to live in the north side, northern sections of the United States. So we're all having a little bit of cabin fever. So, but with that, thanks for listening. You guys have a great night. Thanks.
See ya.
Go check out the website, guys. Paddle, the letter N and fin.com. Also check out YouTube. youtube.com/paddle and fin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest, feel free to email us at paddle, the letter N and fin @gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media. We're doing giveaways, announcements, things like that at Facebook and Instagram at paddle and fin. Shout out to our show supporters, Rocktown Adventures, Loveland Canoe and Kayak, Hammered Lures, Fish Mob Lures, TRC Covers, Ketch Products. Go to ketchproducts.com. You could put the Paddle and Fin logo right on your catch board. Don't forget to go over and pick up your JigMasters Jigs. Use promo code PNF20 and save 20% today. Don't forget to rate and review the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to. It helps grow the audience, helps others find our podcast. So please drop a 5-star rating in on the podcast platform you're listening on. Don't forget about the recycled plastics program, you guys. Take your used plastic baits, put them in an envelope, mail them to the address in the show notes. Our man Eric Richards at Hammered Lures melts those down, makes new baits, and donates them to various chapters of Heroes on the Water.